Good evening, friends, and welcome to yet another very interesting session with Desh Kapoor. Welcome, Desh.
Thanks, Jaydev. Always good to be here.
Yeah. So, a lot of things are happening, and we'll be talking about that in this particular session. The fact that the Congress currency scam was sort of shown in the movie Durand, and also the fact that Tharoor has, snubbed Congress party yet again, and also a huge win for BJP in Kerala. So we'll be talking about that as well. So coming to the first point, Deshi, and the first point is that the Shashi Tharoor has again, he has been absent from a meeting chaired by Rahul Gandhi on Friday, raising questions about his recurring absence. And so, if you know that he is the Trivandrum MP, and it's quite interesting to know that he has been praising Modi, as we have discussed earlier in earlier sessions, and also he was part of the Operation Sindoor delegation outside India. And in many times, it seems that he seems to be leaning more towards the BJP rather than Congress party. So what is going on with Shashi Tharoor? And yes, he was invited for the dinner with Putin.
Right. Thanks, Jadev. It was it's always great to be here. I think when you said that he is leaning more towards, Shashi Tharoor is leaning more towards BJP in many of the issues, I think that tells a tale. Because in none of the issues, he is actually overtly trying to back BJP. Like what he is trying to do is actually say the obvious in the national interest. Now, what is really striking in today's atmosphere, today's scenario is that opposition is equal to anti-India. The narrative, the anti-India narrative is what the opposition thrives on. Anybody who even for a minute talks about India and talks about India in a sane way automatically becomes a BJP guy, even though he or she may not be BJP person, right? That's the most striking part of today's Indian politics, that there is no pro-India opposition left in India in politics. It is either you are with India or you're against India. That is all there is. And I think people like Shashi Tharoor are actually looking beyond the time of Congress when Rahul Gandhi is gone. Because in the next 4 to 5 years, at some point, all the cases which have come against Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi, National Herald and all those things will, fructify into some action. What happens then? Because this Rahul Gandhi brand of politics is actually suffocating for a lot of people, within Congress who actually wanted to be in politics and wanted to be in Congress to do something. Now, whether we always agree with them or we don't agree with them is a separate thing. But the thing is, even in their own way, they were trying to, shape India in a certain way. But today they are not in the politics to actually, Rahul Gandhi and his gang is not in politics to shape India in a more powerful and a progressive way. They are in it to actually bring India down. So in that sense, when I look at it, I think, I don't know whether Shashi Tharoor will actually, ever join BJP or not, but I hope he does not. I hope he remains in opposition and becomes a viable opposition, shows what opposition should really be like. It's just sad that we do not even have an opposition that we can look up to, that is even relevant anymore now. So in that sense, I think I'm not surprised that he did not join, Rahul Gandhi's meeting that was there. So I'm actually very happy that he stayed away from that. He created a distance. That distance should be maintained by every sane person who still remains in Congress. Most of the sane people have already left. In fact, like people who have left have still not, retained their sanity. People like Sanjay Jha. Even after being thrown out of Congress, he still tries to cling to Congress narrative, which was regressive, which was anti-India, anti-national. He still remains like that, and so do many more. So it's just sad how this whole Congress infrastructure has become today, and opposition infrastructure has become today. It is decisively anti-Hindu, to begin with, and then it became anti-India and anti-future India also now. So in that sense, I think personally, I think it's a great move. He is trying to distance himself from that regressive politics that is defining Congress today. And if you really look at him, he's actually one of those older Congress tradition types, internationalist, elite. He's articulate, he's institutional friendly. And, versus the new Congress ecosystem, which is anti-India, anti-Hindu, anti-Modi. Anti-Modi is a proxy for being anti-India. More populist, street-centric, and leader obsessed with Rahul Gandhi. So in that sense, I think the dichotomy is very, very clear, and the choice is very clear for the people. It's only a matter of time. I think Shashi Tharoor is investing in the future. It's only a matter of time until before Rahul Gandhi and his type of politicians go down completely. So
yeah. So Desh, next point is Rahul Gandhi is visiting Germany from December 15th to 20th. He's scheduled to meet German government ministers and engage with the Indian diaspora as part of a major Indian Overseas Congress outreach, according to the Indian Overseas Congress. But I mean, it's more than that. It's quite obvious that there's something brewing, right, which we are not aware of, because he talks about hydrogen bomb and all those things, and then you see attacks like the Red Fort blast happening. So all this seems very, very, suspicious indeed.
Right, it is. See, the thing is, you look at Germany. Germany is at the forefront of the liberal Europe that they have. A Europe which has lost its entire, relevance now. And it is one of those countries which is actually leading the charge against Russia. And, so if you remember those three diplomats who actually wrote that op-ed in Times of India, just a few days before Mr. Putin actually came to India, one of them was from Germany. So Germany is not shy of, political interference within India. So, and it is a hub of all the NGO-driven discourse on democracy and media freedom and backsliding, all those things. It is also actually, many people may not know, but a lot of, and if you read Rajiv Malhotra's work, you'll realize that a lot of missionary activities which is targeted towards India actually comes from Germany. So in that sense, I think it will be, from his perspective, it will be an ideal place for moral signaling, virtue signaling. It is a moral signaling capital of liberal Europe anyways. So to do virtue signaling from there, would be just perfect for Rahul Gandhi. Because as I said, his brand of politics is anti-India. The more rabidly anti-India it is, the happier he feels. He feels he has accomplished something in his life when actually he's more rabidly anti-India, and he brings India down. And of course, he attacks Hindus and all those things using RSS and BJP as proxies. But now those marks are gone. Now those things are better understood. He's better understood. So nobody is surprised at what he's trying to do. And then that would be a very safe place for him to seek, external validation, because domestically he has lost everything. I don't think there is anything left for him and his, with Supreme Court also going against all his, narratives, and his own lawyers and all those things. It is, the only place left is the external validation now. So that's what he is trying to do. And, I don't know whether they realize it or not, because they think this is the best way to actually handle the situation. Because, every time they go outside, Rahul Gandhi, Sam Pitroda, and all these guys, whether they do Hindenburg or, other things, they think that, those countries and those powers still have the ability to hit India. I believe more and more that ability to hit India is going away, because India has become much stronger. Its intelligence, its security has become much better than it used to be. There was a time before 2014 that India was on complete sale. Anybody could buy anyone, whether it was Germany, US, a Soviet Union before that, or Russia, anyone, or China, anyone could buy anyone. Because, like, we know how many journalists were being, bought by China. That came out. Even, President at that time, Pranab Mukherjee, who was the MP, and I think he was the one of the ministers in that cabinet. He had shared how many journalists were on the payroll of China. And similarly, they were on the payroll of CIA and all those things. So now, at least in the higher echelons of the Indian politics, especially in BJP, people are not sold out, and that is a big difference. So they can try and do whatever they want. It will be very hard for them to actually break through this. So I think everyone, in the West, is actually gunning for Modi ji, and the reason is very obvious, because they have no space left to sabotage and subvert India now. All that is still there is actually through these people, Rahul Gandhi, TMC, and Stalin, and all those folks. And that is what they try to do. So that's what I'm saying. The only window that the external forces have to enter India and to subvert India is the Indian opposition combined, the India alliance. And they have nothing else to do except feed that entire agenda to India. So Indian voters are rising up, and they are resenting political leaders who seek legitimacy outside, and who try to keep going on with this failing domestic narrative of India being bad, Modi ji being bad, Hindus being the worst thing in mankind, and all those things, because that's what they keep doing all the time. And sometimes when they feel Hindus are too strong, they try to feign some kind of alignment with the Hindus, as we saw recently. What Mamata Banerjee was doing, she couldn't even ring a bell properly. That's how pathetic they are. When Rahul Gandhi walks in his dhoti, he can't even walk properly in his dhoti. So these guys are just absolutely pathetic, actors. Everybody has seen through them. So, so it's just a matter of time before they have to just leave the stage, because there is no future left for that kind of politics now.
Yeah. Yeah. So also an interesting development is Trump Media and Technology Group Director Eric Swider has announced that the firms he represents plan to invest 1 lakh crore in the upcoming Bharat future city in Telangana over the next 10 years. So meanwhile, even this is going on, it's quite surprising because Trump is putting all those tariffs on India, especially with now the rice exports as well. You know, so what is going on? He's playing a double game.
Yeah, so I think that entire so there are two parts to it, right? One is a personal money making thing. The other one is like what he tries to do for the politics within the US. So all those tariffs and those 25% additional tariffs that he's putting, and the hatred for H1Bs and all those things, that is to satisfy his domestic audience, his MAGA, extreme MAGA group. But then he has to make money as well. So obviously for that, Pakistan is not enough. India is actually the fastest growing large economies, large economy. So that is where he wants to be. In fact, outside of US, the highest amount of money that he makes from the Trump brand and the Trump real estate is actually in India. So all the while that he's actually saying India is a dead economy, he is actually profiting from India all the time. So it's very strange the way he's working. There is a domestic politics Trump, and then there is a personal investor Trump, and a profiteering Trump. So they go side by side, and I think as long as he is not harming India, a whole lot, like we should be fine. In fact, it's very interesting. I have found that this is the first time I've seen in quite a few years, recently, when Modi ji actually had a conversation with Trump and he talked about it. He did say it was a warm and nice, all that. But then he didn't call Trump a friend. He just said, Mr. like President Donald Trump. Earlier on, he used to say, my friend Donald Trump and all that. And he does the same thing with Putin and same thing with like quite a few others. But he skipped that. So it was like, yes, it was warm and all those things we can say, but there is a line that is being drawn now. And that line is very, very important. So in that sense, I would say that things like Modi ji is trying to make things as normalized as possible, but that trust factor is gone. So politically, Trump is not going to win anything in India, as far as his politics is concerned. I think like he's going to lose India completely. But on the other hand, because he is a president, he will get a lot of stuff, to profit from in India. The day he ceases to be president, even that will be gone, because there will be no reason to humor him anymore. And I think like that is a major factor. So like whatever he's doing politically, he thinks he can get away with it from the personal standpoint, but he won't be in India, because if this government remains and the way it is, it will remain in power. Then they have a very, very long memory. So it won't be very easy, for him to continue with this kind of dual paced kind of like way that he keeps working on.
Yeah, so coming to the last point, Deshi, and it is with regards to the film Durand. And as we know that it is creating a lot of noise, and especially the left-wing media is they have gunned down this film. And also this film has a lot of real life events, including the currency scam which happened in Pakistan when Congress was in power. So if you could just explain more about this, have you seen this film by any chance?
I haven't seen because I'm in the US and I've been traveling, so I did not get a chance to actually go and watch the movie. And I've been like traveling quite a lot, so I just did not get the time to watch it. But this is one movie I really want to watch. They have talked about many things in many like areas, and I think they have talked about the IC 814. They have talked about the whole currency thing, and then they have talked about the 2611. So I have actually looked into those things in detail, and there's a lot of information that is out there that one needs to look at. So but the point is that like people do not all these people who uh, go around talking about how bad this movie is, all those like Anupama Chopra and other so-called critics, they have a fundamental problem because they are, in all my understanding that I see, they've been bought over completely. So, see, the thing is, I was, reading this book called Frontline Pakistan, and in there, it's written by Zahid Hussain. So Zahid Hussain writes that book, and so in that book he says about like what that goes on in Pakistan. And one of the interesting things he writes is that he was actually there at the tarmac when the IC 814, hijackers were brought in by, Doval, Akaji Doval, and they were handed over. So he clearly said that at that time, Talib, like you could easily see very clearly how Taliban, ISI, and LET and Hizbul Mujahideen, all terrorists, they were actually one whole. They were not working against each other. They were actually working together. So when the hijacking was done, till the time, and the hijackers were let out, they're all terrorists. The people who did the hijacking were terrorists. When they came in, the ISI officers were there in Kandahar. And that is a very important part of the whole thing, like how this whole thing was orchestrated. So what the film actually would be showing, like, would have taken care of all those things, that it was one continuous thing between Taliban, ISI, and the jihadists. So Zahid Hussain says very clearly that I was there at that time and this is what happens. And then actually he says something very interesting. He says during Ziaul Haq, actually Islamic training and the philosophy was made part of the curriculum at the Command and Staff College. So there was actually a directorate of religious instruction which was created to educate the officers and the entire officer corps on Islam. And in there, the officers were required to read the book by Brigadier S.K. Malik called Quranic Concept of War. Now, Quranic Concept of War is a very, very important book that was written. And because it talked about a whole lot of things. It talked about how, victory is not something that happens on the battlefield. It's not how much did you succeed in battlefield. What he talks about is victory is that we are still persistent. Our persistence has not died down. That is victory for us. So when they talk about, a jazba, like whenever you like listen to Pakistani, we still have the jazba, that's what they mean. That jazba thing is the factor that SK Malik talks about, because he actually takes the example of Battle of Uhud by Prophet Muhammad, and he says how he lost the war, but he still had the persistence to fight many more wars and retain the faith to actually defeat those people. So, and total war in his sense is not just the kinetic, it goes beyond that. It goes to a point where the enemy's heart should be filled with terror. That's how he puts it. That instilling terror in enemy's heart is the goal. So Kalia, when you see at what happened to that Jawan who was beheaded and his head was used to play football, which was incidentally also orchestrated by Ilyas Kashmiri, whose role Arjun Rampal actually plays in the movie Dhurandhar. So that shows what kind of mindset was propagated within the so-called Pakistani army. Because I keep saying this, they are not army. It is a disgrace to any officer in uniform to call Pakistan's like fighting force as army. They cannot be army. What they have done in history, what they are doing now, what they have done in Balochistan, in Bangladesh, or like Bengal at that time, how they actually rape camps were set up. 400,000 women were violated till a point that it was not even possible to violate them anymore. That is how inhuman those people are. And it was not done by just one or two soldiers. It was done by the entire so-called army. Actually, like what should happen is we should insist that Nuremberg-like trials should be done on the this like so-called Pakistani army, and every one of them should be executed the same way as the Nazis war criminals were executed, because that would be the real justice about what they have done. The same thing they did even in 1948. Like it was led by Major General Akbar Khan, and he took the tribals, and they could not reach Srinagar on by the time that they had decided, and that is why India got that window. It's because they were doing all these things. They were looting, and they were creating those kind of camps. So their mindset is very, very clear. So, and it's not I am saying this. I'm just saying that actually that concept of war is ingrained within the mindset of each and every Pakistani officer. And that is how they behave. So when Dhurandhar actually shows those kind of things, whether it is an ISI officer, Pakistani army officer, or a terrorist, they are not off. All I'll say is that they have actually diluted that. And then we come to the this whole thing about the fake currency notes. The fake currency notes was, it had been engineered to such a level that was almost near official standards. The De La Rue, the company from which India used to take the paper, actually had a joint venture with the State Bank of Pakistan, which is their central bank, since 1950. I don't know which idiot had this brainwave that we'll go and buy the paper from the same company which has a joint venture with Pakistan's central bank. But that's what India was doing. And the funny thing is, or actually the sad thing is, that Pakistan used to pick up more of the same paper that India was using for its currency than India would pick up. So they were making far more of Indian currency than India was making its own currency. Like that was like that's how screwed up the whole thing was, because currency had become a battlefield, because it was a weapon of asymmetric warfare, right? People forget that. And that is what demonetization was supposed to do. It was like supposed to take out all that fake currency and throw it out. So it achieved that, like in most part. Like obviously it will never finish because they'll keep on like trying to do that. But like one of the things that happened at that time was that the person who owned that operation, he committed suicide in Pakistan because he had like nothing left in his eye. So this was, I mean, like whatever happened in India uh, before demonetization, it was like extremely disturbing, and that is what they are trying to solve, because fake currency became the lifeline of the entire terrorism. The reason why suddenly all that stone pelting and everything has stopped is because there is nothing left to actually pay them. So in that sense, I think if those are the kind of, that kind of Pakistan army, so-called army, is what, Anupama Chopra and other critics are trying to normalize, then shame on them. Shame on them. Because what they are trying to do is actually normalize absolute demonic entities. Because that's all you can think of. Like how do you even evaluate a person who runs those kind of camps as a matter of official strategy? Because it was a matter of official strategy in Operation Searchlight. Like that's how regressive, absolute demonic they are. So if those are the kind of people you are trying to, or like Shah Rukh Khan and all these people have been trying to do all these years, ISI and Pakistani army being, like one lovey-dovey, like people, sorry, like you are trying to normalize a demon, like demon, who should, and this kind of practice should never be tolerated.
Yeah. So regarding the currency, scam which happened way back in 2006 under the Congress government of back then. So I really don't understand why Modi ji and BJP, they don't question the Congress on this particular story of the currency scam.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm sure, I mean, like at that time, obviously they could not do, because if they had done that, the entire economy would have fallen flat. Because I'll tell you, in 2010, I had read, now most of those, references were taken away, but I remember very clearly I had read about this. There was, newspaper article in, I think it was Times of India, and it said very clearly that in the Indo-Nepal border, near that border, a lot of public sector bank branches, they found actually fake currency notes there. Now, when CBI went there to actually go and investigate that, they thought it would be from ISI. What they found was absolutely shocking. They found that actually those fake currency notes had come from RBI's vaults. That means India's own central bank was compromised to an extent that it was actually dishing out fake currency notes of its own currency. That's how terrible the situation was. So when on that day, when Modi ji at 8 p.m. he made that address, at that time RBI was having a meeting for something else. All of the top brass was there, and they switched on the TV, and they found out that suddenly demonetization had happened, and they were not even aware of that. Now people criticize that so much. How was RBI not kept in loop? The reason why RBI was not kept in loop was because RBI was actually a player in that whole scandal. Because it could not have happened, this whole thing could not have happened if RBI's, at least someone up there, had not been involved with it. Right? And I'm just shocked that people like Raghuram Rajan and all those people who were at the helm at that time, like when all this currency notes were being, like fake currency notes were being created. At that time, he never said anything. He never found anything wrong. Everything happened right under his nose. All those investigations, I'm sure that should have shocked anybody who had any sense of integrity. That it happened and nobody said a word at that time, or nobody did anything to stop it, shows how compromised they were. And for that is why it was very, very tough for the Modi ji and the rest of people when they did demonetization to call all that out. All the NPAs that were done, that had brought the entire Indian banking system to its knee, that, and plus the fake currency together, if you really look at it in an objective way, the Indian economy had already collapsed. It was just kept up just through narratives. That's all. And that is why it was like very tough for them to say anything. And they have created a whole lot of, documentation in media and all those things. So whether you fight that narrative and put your mind to that, or you like work to make India better, I think that is the question that they may be having. But one of the things that this movie is doing is it is actually moving the Overton window permanently. So, in my view, things start happening in the culture field or the movie field at the very end. When the entire society, the Overton window in the entire society has already moved. That is when the movie makers or the filmmakers start making the movies that address that same issue, because now the society is ready to take it. Like that is Kashmir Files was at the right time. It helped in changing the Overton window. So did the Bengal Files and Vaccine War that Vivek Agnihotri made. And now more and more such movies will come because they are part of that shift. So for all these leftists, all that facade that they had created over all these years, that is going to collapse. In fact, that battle for them is now lost because now people have woken up.
Yeah, because it makes a lot of sense because, in places like West Bengal, even you see, in the next election, BJP has a good chance of winning the election in West Bengal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you really look at, so if you look at like what has happened in the SIR. In SIR, the total number of their deletions that have happened is around like how much? 5.8 million, right? Like 58 lakhs. Like that's the number of deletions that have happened. The total number of votes by which TMC won in the last state election was actually 6 million votes, around 60 lakhs. So basically, this time it will be extremely hard for them to actually win this election, because now the entire lead that they had based on fake voters, the out of India illegal like voters, people who had died, people who are not there anymore, who had moved out, and the TMC goons would like used to sit there and make sure that the vote was given on their behalf. All that stuff is gone. Now it will be extremely tough for TMC to actually survive the entire political change, because it won't be easy. And like people, anyways, there was a shift that was happening in the urban voters. 2019 showed that how things how BJP had made inroads. And see, the thing is that even in 2021, like in many ways, like when they like for the elections, they actually had many seats where the margins were less than 10,000, and some of them even had less than 5,000, and some even in just hundreds. All those seats will be up for grabs now. So that buffer that they had, through intimidation and so-called like welfare, which is basically freebies, that all will go away. Because now, after Sandesh Khali and all those things, people are more aware in Bengal. Bengal will change in the next election completely.
Yeah, and also today, surprisingly, in Kerala, after nearly 40 years of LDF rule, in the local body election, NDA won 50 wards. And this is a huge win for, the BJP NDA, because after 40 years of LDF rule, in Thiruvananthapuram Corporation, they're winning. So even in Kerala, NDA is making inroads very slowly.
Right. So Thiruvananthapuram is the administrative heart, and it has been a stronghold of the left for such a long time. So for there to actually win shows that the narrative in the urban voters' mind has changed. Again, the Overton window has moved. So the myth, the age-old myth that was created that Kerala is actually BJP proof is going away. And there is a middle class, fatigue now. The entire, educated class has a fatigue of this whole ideological nonsense that is going on, and especially with what happened at the temple there, in
Sabrimala.
Sabrimala. That actually created a lot of resentment. And so this is, I would say this is the Kerala moment. Just like, there was a Bengal moment earlier on. And now this will be next election in, Bengal will be the real fructification of that, Bengal moment that happened in 2019 when BJP made great inroads. So this psychological barrier now is breaking. Once the psychological barrier breaks, that okay, can BJP even win there? Is it a winnable, opponent or candidate? Now that psychological barrier is gone, BJP can win, and it can win really well. So, left is becoming more and more irrelevant. And it's not because BJP is suddenly very big and loud and all those things. No. It is because the left has actually stopped answering, everyday questions of governance. It has stopped being a sane voice in governance at all, right? Because what they have been doing all these years is actually, running an ideological shop. And at some point, people realize the entire farcical nature of this entire ideological shop that they are. And again, their ideology is not pro-India. Their ideology is not pro-society. Their ideology is built ground up on the assumptions that Hindu are bad and need to be thrown out of the society. From there, they have started. And now it has come to a point, well, if India is Hindu majority country, then India needs to go down. So that's what they have come to. At some point, people will realize that it is my life at stake now. My faith, my God, my, my scriptures, me itself is now at stake. So election is not just for one government at all. What is at stake is me. So that's what people are realizing now.
Yeah, and also the power of social media as well, with all these movies and everything.
Right. So all these opposition parties have lost the ideological coherence, the intellectual coherence, of actually saying anything sane, anything that uplifts the society. And a good thing is that the people who wanted to talk facts, they did not abandon Bollywood. They actually created another, like version of Bollywood with Vivek Agnihotri, with Aditya Dhar, and folks, and Kangana Ranaut, and folks like them. So Bollywood is, in a sense, it's losing the ideological fear that they had of approaching such subjects. Now with the success of these movies, they want to approach these subjects because they are not just facts, not just change the entire narrative. It actually is very profitable as well. And left and Rahul Gandhi and all those people, they are losing the entire legitimacy in the eyes of the voters now. So power is shifting. Whether they like it or they don't like it, the entire dynamics of power is shifting, and it is shifting in a way which is irreversible now. So they can keep on doing whatever the heck they want, but with the same kind of mindset, with the same kind of people, with the same kind of players and actors, they cannot succeed for very long.
Yeah, that was a wonderful session, Deshi, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Jai
and Jai
Hind.
Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.